What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Be the Light podcast with your host. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Sierra.
We're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to be raw, real, and relatable.
Let's light it up. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed part 1 of Susanne's interview last week. And we are continuing this week with the rest of her interview in part 2.
So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Love ya.
Oh, I got it on my watch. We're real fancy.
Hey, you know what? That is fancy.
Trying to be. All right. Well, it's good stuff. Good
Very
stuff.
good.
I could literally talk here for like hours. Like,
Yes, this is so good.
go ahead.
Okay. So we talked about your teaching and your family, and so how did you get just from being a school teacher to a Bible study teacher?
Okay. So, when I was teaching school, I used to beg God. And it's funny because I used to beg God, okay? And I so have learned, don't beg God.
Well,
You know,
the funny
but-
thing I do a lot of times, I'm like, God, if this would happen,
Yeah.
like, you think about what I would tell God
Yeah.
to think about
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, girl, shut up.
I know. Well, I used to, so when I was teaching school, elementary school, I knew I was not in my element,
Right.
okay? I knew it.
Right.
But I was like, Lord, make me a teacher.
Right.
I need this gift.
Right.
But please make me a teacher. And I know he probably just laughed at me, at my heart and at my ignorance.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sure he does that a
Because-
lot. With
Yeah.
Not to you specifically.
Well, I mean, no, he probably does.
With all
Seriously.
of us.
But so what it was is I am not called to small children. I'm just not. I'm called to adults.
Right.
That is my area. And that's where I feel like, okay, I am in my element.
Right.
You know. And so I'd had 4 kids
Okay.
by the time Tina Green, you know who Tina Green is? Yeah, she was prophesying over me, and she told me, God has made you to be a Bible teacher, and he gives you insight into the word that you're supposed to share with others, and all this stuff, and that was new to me. And you have to be careful when someone is giving you a word. Is it something that is confirming what God has already told you, or is he confirming it when they tell you? You have to be careful with that and not just follow what people tell you, But that was another time in my life where the Lord was shouting in me, He was shouting truth. She is speaking truth.
Wow.
You believe her,
Right.
I'm like, okay, and so I didn't do anything with that because I didn't know what to do with that,
Right.
And so then Tom Booker came. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I think you referenced him in your teaching.
Yeah. He is also why Jim preaches.
Oh,
Tom Booker.
okay.
He was a pastor that came a couple after Craig at the church, but he spoke into Jim about preaching, and he spoke into me about teaching. And he's the one that asked me to teach my first Bible study.
Okay.
And I was like, oh,
Right.
it was nervous for me.
Yeah.
And so, but then I sat down and started to write, and I wrote my first Bible study, and it was on the book of Hosea.
Okay.
And the thing about it is I wrote it, and it was like a dam broke, and it just like flowed out, and what I found was when you are doing what you're called to do, you can't help but do it, because if you don't do it, then a part of you feels like it's going to wither away and die.
That's like with the podcast, honestly. Like
Really?
last year, we started doing it in, I think it was like July when we kind of fell off. And like all the rest of the year, I was like busy, but then something was just weird, and I was just not feeling fulfilled, and it was on my
Yeah.
heart, but I was not listening.
And we would like be like, man, we need to start that again.
Yeah, we needed
But
to
we
record a
never
podcast, and we
would.
never would, and it was just on my heart to just do it again, and then finally we started doing it. So yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you don't listen to it, it just, like you said, you wither away. Like it kind of eats at you from the inside.
Yes. Well, and so for me, when I write, because it's really more about the writing, and then I teach from what I write,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and so I have to write it all first.
Right.
And I don't know if any of y'all have heard of Eric Liddell. He was an Olympian runner from Scotland, long time ago. But he had this quote, and he was saying, "God made me fast." Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
No.
And then he would say, "I feel the pleasure of God when I run."
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, I feel the pleasure of God when I write.
Right.
I can feel his satisfaction, his smile,
Mm-hmm.
when I am doing that, because I do it with him,
Right.
not apart from him.
Right.
Because I can't do it apart from him.
And this was before you had you were with Jesus and you saw your book, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, this was before.
So he's preparing you.
Yes,
Yeah.
always preparing.
Right.
Yes. And so by this time I had Joshua, Stephen, Timothy, and Olivia. Olivia's about a year old. Yeah. And so that was when I taught that first Bible study. And from that point, I have been writing and teaching continuously, since then.
So okay, so that was 20-ish years
Well,
ago?
yeah, 20 years
Okay.
ago.
And you said it took you 5 years to write the book.
Yes.
So 15 years worth of Bible studies.
Do you know, here's what I have learned, and it's so important. When God gives us a gift, a spiritual gift, it's raw.
Mm-hmm.
It is in raw form.
Okay.
And it is up to us. He helps us, but it's up to us to develop it,
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't develop it, then it's not going to get better and better,
Right.
because learning is growing,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and growing is learning.
Right.
Yeah.
See, for me, so I've heard like a lot of times that you can have multiple spiritual gifts and stuff
yeah.
like that. And I just feel like he made me need a lot of reassurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I feel like I struggle with like understanding like what my gift is, like, I don't know, like, and I'm like, Lord, can you put it in writing? Like,
Yes.
cause I just struggle
So
with that.
Tom Booker, I keep talking about him, but he was so instrumental in my life, especially early on. He gave me this book, okay, because I thought I was just so weird, okay, because I didn't see anybody else around me that was like me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I just was different. And so he gave me this book. It's called Discovering Your God-Given Gifts by Don and Katie Fortune, like fortune cookie, And the thing about it is it's talking about our 7 motivational gifts.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you told me my gift, and I was like, I didn't know what I'm.
Yeah.
And then we started going
because
through.
the more you know them, then you
Mhm.
can start picking
Picking
them out
them
in
out,
people.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, because what they are, it's a perceiver, which is also
That's what you are.
a prophet. And what a perceiver is, basically, they see black and white. There's not really any gray. They have a strong opinion about a lot of things. Nothing wrong with that. That's just how they see the world.
Right.
They usually are called to a very close walk with God. They are called to intercession. In the Bible, they would be called prophets.
Is that the one that like sees people like spirits?
Sometimes. Now, and that's a whole other
'Cause that's
subject. Okay.
She's such a feeler. Like
I can
Uh-huh.
feel
she
it's
can walk
weird.
into a room
Well,
and
and
know
that's a
what's
gift
going
from
on.
God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a perceiver. It's like they have like an antenna,
Right.
you know, that they can see or sense.
Right.
And really, see is a deceptive word.
It's,
It's better to
A
say
sense.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a feeling.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Right. So I guess my next question would be, how do I dive into that to develop it more? Like,
One is just learning who you are, because
Right.
you're not just a perceiver.
right,
'Cause- okay, let me tell you the other gifts, because we're a combination.
right,
All of us are.
Right.
You know, there's perceiver, there's exhorter. They're the mouth of the body. You know,
Mhm.
perceivers are the eyes. The mouth of the body is an exhorter. They are people.
Mm.
They love people. They energize off of being with people.
That's kind of me
Did
too.
you say You said Miss Kathy is one.
Oh, I can say,
from church
yeah.
on the front row.
Oh, yes,
Mhm.
yes,
And
yes.
she loves people.
Mhm.
You know, and that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Let's see, and then there is administrator. An administrator they are naturally gifted at organizing. They are very good at delegating,
Mm.
you know, jobs to people. They have the messiest houses of
Which is
anyone.
Ironic because
Because they're so organized,
right?
but
We don't have
the
time
thing
for
is,
that.
yeah, they're organized in what they like to organize, or
Right.
what is in their scope.
Mhm.
If it's not in their scope, it'll be there later.
Right.
It's fine. You know, and then there is teacher, which is what I am.
Right,
Mhm.
Can't help but be it, because it's just me.
Well,
right.
you
you
said
know?
that you begged God to make you a teacher.
I know, and he had to
He
be
was already
laughing
making
because
you a teacher,
already.
right?
Well, no, I was born that, because we're
Right.
born with whatever personality that we have.
Right.
We can't change it. We're made that way.
Right.
You know. And the thing is even before you're a believer, you still are that.
Right.
You know, it's just when you become a believer, then he enhances that.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so teachers, they are very organized in how they present things,
Mm.
you know, and it's just natural for them.
Mhm.
I don't even know how to, they're the mind of the body,
Mhm.
Right.
you know. Administrators are the shoulders. They're hold it up. And so then you have giver. A giver is, they're harder to pick out, because they kind of are a conglomerate, you know, of a lot of things. They love missions. They love to be a part of a ministry and be giving into it. They feel very passionate about what they give into. Another is compassion.
Mm.
They're the heart of the body.
Mhm.
And man, and it's funny because each of them have a percentage of people.
Right.
The lowest percentages of people are givers and teachers.
Mm.
They're only 6%. So you don't have many
Right.
of them. But on the other hand, compassion, they are the most. So
Hmm.
30%
Hmm.
of the body is compassion.
Okay.
And they're the heart of the
Hmm.
body. They love.
Right.
Mhm.
And they feel so deeply when they love.
Right.
You know, it's very beautiful.
Mhm.
And then the other is server.
Mhm.
And servers are the hands of the body, and they're absolutely necessary.
Mhm.
All of them are absolutely necessary. But servers and compassion both are very shy. They don't like to lead.
Mhm.
Servers like to collect things.
Mhm.
They'll have collections. They have very neat houses.
Mhm.
They have the neatest house. They also have like all this energy, you know. And so it's just neat, the characteristics that go with them. But
Mhm.
that was from that book, Discovering Your God-Given Gifts. And there's one for children too
Oh,
that's
cool.
very good, Discovering Your Child's God-Given Gift,
Oh, that's
by the same
cool.
people,
Okay.
Don and Katie Fortune.
Okay. We'll have to put that in there.
So you figured out you were a teacher.
Yes. Yes,
And you started teaching Bible study, which is where you felt more comfortable.
very much
And so did all
Mhm.
that, your lessons, become this book?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
no.
So you got new lessons for this book, like as you were writing the book, that's where all the lessons came from when you were writing.
There
Was
were
it previous? Or?
And actually, that is not my first book. I've written several books.
That's what I thought. I thought
Yeah.
you had written a couple.
I've
of
written
them.
several. It's
Were
the
they all
first one
devotional
published.
styles?
For the most part,
Okay.
because that's what's in me.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, and you can't make
Teacher.
anything come out of you that's not.
Right.
It just is.
Otherwise, it feels forced and it just doesn't work.
Right.
Mhm.
Because okay, if I sat down and tried to write a fiction book, it wouldn't be any good.
Right.
Because it's
That's not
just
what you're
not
called
in
to
me.
do,
Right.
right.
Now, if it was somebody with compassion
Right.
or even perceiver,
Mhm.
Right.
then they would do a beautiful job.
Right.
But that's not who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you? Okay, God showed you the book
Mhm.
in your book.
Mhm.
So from that visual to the book, like, how did you come up with the format and the?
Oh, the Lord told me the format.
Okay.
He told me this is how I want you to do it.
Okay.
And then there is a sequel that he already told me about. You
Okay.
know, I mean, I was waking up. Okay, when you know that God is speaking when you're waking up, and it's before you even have a coherent thought. Okay, and He's already speaking.
And you already had like that on your brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know it didn't come from you.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I was waking up out of sleep, and He was telling me the name of my next book, and He was telling me, and I want it to have this, this, and this, and to have the same format, and I'm
Right.
like, okay, you know.
Wow.
And so that one is about half written.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and but I don't write on it unless I feel like, okay, the Lord is telling me, okay, do this.
That's
Right.
what I was gonna ask. I was
Mhm.
like, is it you set a certain amount of hours per day to just write, or
Yeah.
it's just as it comes?
Yeah,
And
that's another reason why it took so long.
right, because you said it took 5
Yeah.
years. So are there like events that happen in your life, and God's like put that in the book?
Sometimes. Okay,
Because I know
here's a
you've
for
got some
instance.
personal
Oh,
stories
I do.
in there.
I
Yeah.
do. And actually, what we talked about with visiting the library is in the book.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
haven't
think
gotten
it's
that
in.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah, I think it's like lesson or chapter 39. I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Yeah, it's like toward the very end.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, he'll tell me some things. He will tell me, and he'll tell me don't tell other people. You know,
Okay.
and that's part of being a friend of God. You know.
Hmm. Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I have on here that you have this quote on your website:
Mm-hmm,
choosing to live as a friend of God.
mm-hmm.
And so, what does that mean to you?
God is looking for friends,
Mm-hmm.
just like we are. You know, we are looking for people who actually want to, who care to sit with us and listen to our heart, and to share their heart, and it to be a relationship.
Right.
He's looking for the very same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He will take servants.
Mm-hmm.
And what servants are doing, they are so busy doing things for Him, then they end up loving Him from afar. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Where He wants people to just come and sit with Him.
Would you say the servants are more like a religious
Sometimes.
viewpoint
Mm-hmm.
versus relationship?
Right.
What He wants, I've noticed when I just sit with Him, we don't always even have to say anything at all.
Mhm.
A lot of times we don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
There are times there are times where He will just share something from His heart that He wants to just share with somebody, you know, and He'll tell me about things ahead of time, things that there's no way I could know.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I could know.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes at first it was distressing. You know, it was like, wow, because He told me about a few people before they died.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that they were going to, but in His perspective, it was, I'm going to bring them home.
Right.
I'm going to set them free. It was
Right.
joy for Him.
Right.
You know, and on this side, people only see it as a sad thing.
Right.
But He doesn't see that way.
Right.
And then there was another time where I was just sitting with Him, and he showed me a couple, and I write about this in the book. He showed me a couple, and he said, I want to bring them a second child. Will you agree with me in that? Like, yeah.
No pressure.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, but it wasn't pressure. It was
Right.
like, oh, well, yes, Lord. Yeah,
Right.
I agree with you in that, you know, because it was his heart to do that.
Right.
But the thing is, okay, did he have to have my agreement to do that?
Right.
No.
But the fact that he wanted it is like
Yes.
something. You
It's
know?
beautiful
Right.
because he looks for a relationship.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
all about relationship with him.
Yes.
And that's friendship. And what
Mhm.
friends do is they sit with him and he shares his heart and promises. And then what our job is to do is to pull them down from heaven and release them to the earth. And how do we do that? We speak them out
Mm-hmm.
and they're released. And it's amazing because then those things come to pass.
Right. So, I'm sure there's people listening to this being like, okay, this girl just talks to God. And so, for someone who just hasn't ever experienced, you know, feeling God speak to them, or just doesn't know how to maybe open up to that, or is just, I don't know, doesn't hear from God, what would your advice be?
It's amazing how many people have asked me that question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask something similar because for me, I feel like I can hear him at certain times, but like other times I need that constant reassurance. And like I'm always like constantly in conversation with God.
Mhm.
Like I'm in
Yeah.
prayer, like just talking. It's me and him always.
Yeah.
But then there's like whenever it goes, I'm always talking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Yes.
whenever I go to try to listen, sometimes I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just
For
not
me,
sure.
it's like when I'm like, God, I need to hear from you.
Please like write it right here.
And then it's like,
right.
and so, well, for me,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll just start writing
Yeah.
with something on my brain. Like,
Right.
and for me, it's just because I have a lot going on all the time. And so I just need to like
Brain dump.
organize my
Mhm.
thoughts in some kind of way. And I'll go to start writing about something, but then all this other stuff comes out. And I'm like, thank you. Like then that's, God's not speaking like audibly, but it's coming out on the
right.
page,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but some people who've never experienced that, that sounds like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what would you say to that?
I would say exactly what you're doing. When I was 14, I started journaling, you know, and not journaling like Dear Diary or
Mhm.
whatever. It was more, I learned to write my prayers and write what his response was. You know, and sometimes, okay, people get hung up on things. If you ask him a question, he's the God of the universe. He made us. Why is he not going to respond?
Right.
You know, but he responds in a lot of different ways
Mhm.
that maybe we may not realize he's responding.
Right.
And so sometimes I'll ask the Lord, help me to recognize how you're speaking, you know, and speak to me in new ways, grow me,
Right.
so that I can see you in other ways and how you're speaking. Pay attention to the thoughts that you're having, because a lot of times your thoughts will be where he's coming from. Like, you know, we have different things that influence, you know, we have our own thoughts. You know, I'm thinking about, you know, what I'm doing today or whatever. But beyond that, sometimes we'll have the enemy that will give thoughts. It will be completely apart from God, and it will be apart from his word. You know, the word is the standard. That's how we know, you know. But at the same time, if it is in agreement with the word, then kind of go with that. Okay, is that him? And then ask for confirmation. You know, and he is happy to confirm
Yeah,
a word
definitely always
over
asking
and
for
over.
confirmation.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that I had just recently learned to do, is to just ask him to confirm it. And
Do you know, okay, and here's another thing with that, okay? I used to be afraid.
I was too.
Okay, and here's what it was. He would give me a word, And he would confirm and confirm and confirm it,
I know
right?
you say that a lot too.
Okay, but then I was afraid if I spoke it, then he wouldn't give it to me anymore, because for the longest time, if I didn't say anything, then he would just keep confirming,
Right.
you know? And then when I spoke it, he didn't confirm anymore. And I was like, oh, I wasn't supposed to release that,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And then he taught me one time, he's like, no, the reason why I stopped giving it to you is because you released it. When you spoke it, you released it and you let it go. That's where it talks about in Amos 3:7, you know, surely the Lord God does nothing without first revealing his secrets to his servants, the prophets, right? And so what's a prophet's job is to be a mouthpiece. And so the Lord shows him them things so that they will release it to the earth. It doesn't even have to be to people,
Right.
but they just release it.
Speaking it.
Yes. Okay, how did God create the world?
Spoke
He
it.
spoke it into
Right.
being. And so we are made in his image
Right.
to do the very same.
That's good.
That's good.
Uh-huh.
That's good.
And so, and a lot of times we don't know that.
Right.
You know, it talks about in Romans, I think it's 4:11, where we speak things as though they're not, but into being, so that they are.
I think the biggest problem that people have is they don't realize that all they have to do is be open to it.
Yes.
Right.
Is to just like look for him,
Right.
ask
Oh,
for
yeah.
him. You know, like these people who they want to argue about the Bible, or they want to argue about my faith, or but they don't want to hear any of it.
Right.
They just want to
Argue.
prove me wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, do you actually want to have this conversation, or do you just want to be right?
Right.
Because it's going to be futile.
Exactly.
And so if people would just open their minds to and just, you know, just ask and look, like be
Right.
open-minded to it. People, it's so annoying because people expect Christians to be open-minded and they have to accept all this flack at them, but then they don't want to do that,
Right.
you know, and so that makes it hard.
Yeah.
It's going to sound like craziness if you're not even open to it at all.
True.
Well, that just goes to, there was something I put on my notes. I pointed, like, my notes are right there, but there's something I put on my notes this past week that said, prayer opens the door for God to work, and then we go complain and shut the door right in his face. Like, because,
You're right.
you
That's a
know,
good one.
so like, I don't know, it just made me bring that up.
And again, we do that with our words.
Exactly. So like, in one breath we say this, but then in the same breath, you
We
know,
negate it and we close the door.
Exactly.
You're exactly right.
you know,
And that's another thing, you know, people will wait to hear from God until they're in some kind of trouble.
right,
And they are desperately trying to hear at that point.
right,
And then at that point, they have so many things coming at them that it's very hard to hear.
To
Right.
recognize.
Because
To
of the
recognize.
noise.
But if you will just go and spend time with him, like, okay, for example, when you lay down in bed at night, you know, instead of being on your phone, put it down and just be like, Lord, can I visit with you? Can I spend time with you? And just be.
And it's
Right.
just
With
that,
him.
like, acknowledge opening your brain and your heart and letting him in.
And then at that point, when you are in the calm places and you learn to hear him, when you get into the troubled places, then
You
it's
know
that
how-
much easier to hear.
And you know,
Yeah.
like, his language and how he speaks, so you know where to look for him more
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
too.
And another thing of what he has done for me many, many times is be in the Word. And he will show me things that will just come out. And it's like, okay, this is a word from God for me in my situation. And that's a rhema word,
Right.
you know, which is beautiful.
Mhm.
That is what faith is made from.
Mhm. You taught me that one the very first day I went to Bible study, and then I swear it was like a week later I got my first rhema word. It was stewardship,
Amen.
and I realized
That
I
you
was a bad,
recognized.
yeah, and that was the one I recognized, yeah, and I realized like I was not good at stewarding the things I had been given. So like, I don't know, when was that? Like 2
Couple
years
years
ago?
ago,
You
yeah.
know, for the last like 2 years I've been working on that. So, I thought that
Well,
was really
but see,
cool.
and only he knows those things.
Right.
You know, and it's just so good.
Mhm.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So, You got anything? Okay, so between being a homeschool mother, writer, Bible study teacher, how did you fit in time to learn Hebrew?
Good question. Okay, so I actually started wanting to learn Hebrew years ago.
Okay.
And so I bought this book that we're going to
triggered
start.
that? Did somebody be like, dude, this will open your mind if you try this?
Okay, no.
Or
But
was
it is true.
Did God, or God gave it to you again?
When all of my kids were very young, I remember going into a bookstore and they had Greek and they had Hebrew, you know, and I remember I was kind of leaning more toward Greek at that time.
Oh, okay.
And I remember I went to pick it up off the shelf and the Lord spoke and he said, you don't have time for that right now. It's like, okay, I'll put it back.
Nice.
Yeah. And I
God,
didn't
right?
at that time. I know. You know, and so then years later, my kids are older and I start looking at Hebrew and just learning it just myself, you know, at that time. And then, I don't know, life happens. I put it down. And then we started it probably about a year and a half ago, you know.
Yeah.
And it has been this beautiful journey, you know, beautiful journey. All of the things that I have learned in the Bible all of these years, you know, and all of the experiences that I have had with God, Hebrew confirms,
Right.
you know, and then takes it so much further. You know, it is like this, like everything on steroids, you know, and I'm like, wow.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't know what Hebrew is, what is it?
Okay. Hebrew is so God's language. It is like chemistry. Chemistry is, you know, each is a component. It's a number. It's a letter or letters, and then it has a whole meaning in itself, right? All the letters of Hebrew are that way. It's God's chemistry. Yeah. All the letters are numbers. They didn't have a separate number system. Their numbers, their letters are their numbers. You know, that's it. Then at the same time, like for instance, you know, at the beginning of The Chosen, you know, and they'll have the bet, and then the hay, you know, and then it's like fish and loaves.
Yeah.
So it's 2 fish, because bet is 2, and hay is 5 fishes.
Okay.
So that's what that means in the beginning of The Chosen every time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's so
Didn't
good.
know idea.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, I didn't even realize that. It was funny because we were watching it because I'd had my thyroid removed. And Alan is the one that noticed that. I was like, you go, Alan.
Paying off.
Yeah. But at the same time, the letters have just this huge meaning. Okay. Each letter, every one of them, because you'll think, okay, some of them have to be plain, right?
Right. No.
No. No.
Right.
And they all point to Jesus.
Right.
They all point to Jesus. And it's too, so that the fact, like we've been learning on Wednesday night, the word for sign, you know, where God says, let this be a sign to you.
Right.
And it also means a miracle, a proof, an evidence, a token.
Right.
So that same word, oat, is the word for a Hebrew letter, is an oat. It's a sign. It's an evidence. It's proving something.
Okay.
You know? In fact, do you want me to show you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I brought a board.
Nice.
I'm trying to figure out how to do it. And so I'll just show you the first letter, which is Aleph.
Is it good if I hold it like this?
Sure.
Yeah.
However you can do it will be good for me.
This down just a little bit.
Okay. So think about this line being the heavenly realm and the earthly realm,
Okay.
right? All right. So the letter Aleph looks like this. That's Aleph, right? That's the
You go
first
zoom in
letter.
a little bit.
Oh.
We're gonna zoom in.
Okay. That's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet.
Will it let you?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
That works.
Okay. We'll just
Okay.
slide it in for a little bit.
I
Okay.
might
Okay.
need to cut that light off, maybe. Figuring it out as we go. Well, maybe the other one. One of them's. There we go. That's
Oh,
better.
you are so fancy. That's great.
Go to the YouTube if you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the heavenly realm and this is the earthly realm, right? This letter is made of 3 letters.
Okay.
And so you have a yud, which is a hand, okay? And then this is a yud that's here. So you have a hand of man who's reaching up to heaven and they're crying out to God.
Okay.
And you have God's hand who's reaching down, but there's no way for them to connect,
Right.
right? And so you have a Vav who connects. And the Vav
Wow.
is the one who came from heaven down to the earth.
Right.
You get it?
Wow.
And now you know what this is? This is the nail. And you
Right.
know what number it is? It's 6, which is the number of man.
Hmm.
Huh.
Okay? Because Jesus came as a man to connect heaven and earth.
Right.
Mm.
Isn't that beautiful?
This is the first letter.
This is just the first letter, okay? And they keep going.
That is insane.
It's beautiful. But then at the same time, this is like God the Father.
Uh-huh.
This is Jesus.
Mhm.
And this is Holy Spirit who came to live among us in the earthly realm.
And this is just one letter.
This is one letter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And they're all like, they all
all
somewhat
of them are like
another.
this. Yes.
So there's more to just this one, right?
Oh, there's so much more. But I just love this. And then at the same time, Yud has the value of 10. This is 6, and this is 10. Okay? This is the beautiful thing because you have all 3 of the Godhead, right? There. 10 and 10 is 20, plus 6 is 26, right? Well, that's also Yahweh. The value for Yahweh, which is Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. And so Yud is 10, Hey is 5, Vav is 6, Hey is 5. So they add up to 26, the same as Aleph.
Huh.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Now, this is something, now I just saw this on a video and I was like, oh, that's so intriguing because that's so God, okay? So our DNA, right, is a double helix, right, and all that. It has a pattern because our God is a pattern-keeping God.
Uh-huh.
He wants to be known, right? And so, do you know what the sequence is in the pattern of our DNA? Everyone's DNA?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to look at it.
It's 10, 5, 6, 5. A repeating pattern. 10, 5, 6, 5. 10, 5, 6, 5. Which is Yahweh.
Wow.
It's his signature
In
within
us.
us. Isn't it beautiful?
That's insane.
Yes. I mean, it just keeps going. I mean, really.
Right.
Do you want me to show you something else?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the coolest things you taught us so far with the Hebrew is the names of everyone from like Adam,
Oh, yes.
from Adam to his
To Noah.
sons,
Uh-huh.
and it tells the story.
And
of
but it
Jesus.
keeps going all the way to Jesus.
to Jesus.
Yeah.
Huh.
All of the meanings of the name, none were an accident.
Right.
None of their names were an accident.
Right.
You know, God had a plan in each one. And I'm sure the parents had no idea,
Right.
but God did.
Right.
So,
That is so cool.
It's insane.
I know. I love all of this.
So then, like, if that is a Hebrew letter,
Yes.
and then you would have another one beside each other,
They tell a story.
then that's what
The
I'm getting
alphabet tells a
at.
story.
Right. It's not really spelling out a word. It's telling a story
Yes.
based on the symbol. Okay.
It is telling a story.
Okay.
And at the same time, okay, the whole Bible is set up through it, and out,
Right.
not just through it, for it.
Right.
Like, for example, okay, the New Testament has 27 books, right?
Mhm.
So from that 27 books, it's the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and 5 of them have different final forms. So it's one for each of the letters of the alphabet, and then the other 5 final forms. So 27.
Right.
The Old Testament used to be 22 books, according to Josephus. And so it was the same books, but it was grouped different. So instead of 1st, 2nd Chronicles, it was Chronicles.
Right.
Kings, Samuel, Judges, Joshua, Judges, Ruth was one book. All of the minor prophets was one book. So it was
Gotcha.
22 books for the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The book of
Gotcha.
Revelation is 22 chapters, one correlating to each of the Hebrew letters of the alphabet. The whole Bible.
Dude,
What?
it's
I'm
wild.
serious.
That
It's
is
beautiful.
awesome.
Well, and like the picture versions of it is
Oh,
even
yes.
even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I love the picture versions. Okay, so let me show you. Let me do it this
Okay.
way. That might be a little easier.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, let me look up this one verse because I don't want to quote it wrong. Where'd it go? Oh, there's right there. Here it is. Okay, so Genesis 1:27. So God created man and woman and shaped them into his image. He created his masterpiece. Yes, male and female, he created them. Right? So we have God within us. He is his image is in us, right? Or we're made in his image. Look at it like this. So man in English, in Hebrew, it is ish. That's the word for man. One of the words for man. There's actually a few. But ish looks like this. You have aleph, and then a yud, and and a sheen, right? So ish. Now, woman is this. Isha.
Okay.
And we look like this. Aleph. Well, sorry. And then sheen. Hey. Okay?
Gotcha.
So, let me just erase that part. Make it a little smaller so we can see it
There
better.
we go.
Okay, so check this out. We have different components of God because one of God's names is Yah, which looks like this. And it's a shortened version of Yahweh. Now, check this out. You have the man has the Yud. A Yud is a hand. It's a powerful right hand, right? Is that not so fitting for a man?
Mm-hmm.
And then for the woman, see, they have the same letters except for hey. Hey is this. It's a person with their hands up toward heaven, thanking God because they've had revelation from God. He is showing them something, right? And so that's like for a woman.
Okay.
So much of the time.
Wisdom.
Insight,
Right.
revelation.
Okay.
Yes. And so think about it like some people will call it women's intuition,
Mm-hmm.
but really it's Holy Spirit,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as long as man and woman in a relationship, they have God in the middle of them. They're both showing different attributes of Him,
Okay.
and all of it is going well.
Right.
They're whole, right? When they have Him. Now, if you were to take Him out of the equation, then both of them have the same letters left, which is an aleph and a sheen. That is a word in Hebrew.
What word is it?
It's fire.
Mm.
So if they don't have God, they are fire. But when you have paleo or the pictograph, version of Hebrew, this becomes an ox head, and this becomes this. And so this means a strong, and this is like teeth. Sometimes it's even written to look like that, teeth. And so it's a devourer. So fire is a strong devourer. And so if we don't have God in our relationship, we're setting ourselves up for the strong devourer to come in his place.
That is just insane.
I know.
Like, so good.
Isn't it?
One, it's like,
it's very blatant because
But
being a picture language,
Right.
you know, do you want me to show you one more thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that
But it's
cool?
crazy
So
because,
cool.
like, it's very blatant if you know it, but if you
Yes,
don't
if you don't know it, then you don't know
what I'm
it.
saying?
Yeah.
Right.
So we were talking recently in class about Genesis 1:1, right?
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
it is so good. I mean, we could spend like a whole long time in just the first word.
Yeah.
Okay, it is so cool. But for example, one of the words where it talks about in Genesis like 1, like 5 or 6, it says, and the Lord separated the waters. Right? You know what I'm talking
Yeah, that's
about.
a good one.
Okay, that is a good one. And so, the word for water is mayim. And mayim looks like, it looks like this in regular. Okay? That is in regular, like modern letters. But if I were to put it in paleo, into pictographs, and then I just put it up and down, oh, it makes all the sense in the world. So check this out. Mem is water. It's waves of water. Okay? And then Yud is a hand doing something. And then Mayim, it's Mem again. What's he
So
doing?
he's separating the waters.
He's separating the waters.
That is insane.
Isn't it like, okay, and then check this out. Okay, so that's a word for water, right? Okay, so the word for heavens, because remember he made the firmament and it separated the waters, right? Is shamayim. See this mayim in there? So all you have to do to make that another, okay, so it's Shah, and you read Hebrew from the other direction, right?
Okay,
from right to left. Yes. So Shah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Mayim. But I'm going to put it over here, and then you have fire. So how do you get that? The firmament. You put fire with the water, and it evaporates, and it makes the atmosphere.
Over the
That's
other
the
water.
heavens. The firmament.
Right.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
It's a picture language.
That is insane.
Yeah. And so this is what has been around all this time. And there are things in the Hebrew language that we don't see
Right.
in the English language.
Right.
And it's like,
Mind blowing.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I
So,
love it.
You said you read right to left, and now my brain is stuck on this. So do you still start at the top of the page and just go
Yes.
like that? Okay.
You do, but
Like, how does
now
that
if
work?
I had a Hebrew book here,
Uh-huh.
we would start at the end and open it this way.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Because I actually have some
Right.
that are really cool. Now, we're starting another Hebrew class because the ones that I have been teaching, we only have, I think this Friday we'll teach Sade, and then I think there's 5 letters left, and then we'll actually start into a curriculum,
Right.
you know, which is exciting
That's
because by the
crazy.
time we finish that curriculum, we'll be able to read the Old Testament in Hebrew, you know.
That's crazy.
I know.
Which,
Isn't that cool?
and Hebrew is what it was originally.
Yes.
Right.
Wrote
Old
down.
Testament was in Hebrew. New Testament was in Greek. Okay. But at the same time, why was it written in Greek? Because when Alexander the Great, he conquered most of the known world, right? He Hellenized everyone. He made them take the Greek culture and the Greek language. So most of the known world understood Greek and didn't Hebrew. And so they put the New Testament in Greek so the Gentiles, so more could understand it.
Okay.
Right? But all of the writers, even of the New Testament, were Jewish, except for Luke. And they, like Matthew, for instance, he wrote it completely in Hebrew first. You know? And the nuances of all the writers is Hebrew. For example, the book of Revelation, you know, I was talking about, it has 22 letters.
Just get the camera back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are we
sorry.
done with this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But with the book of Revelation, Jesus, where he says, I am the Alpha and Omega, was certainly not what he would have really said. He would have said the Aleph and the Tav, which is the first and the last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, because it's so going along with that. And he was a Jewish savior, right? So, yeah. So anyway, what I was saying is we are going to start a beginning class. So if y'all are interested in learning Hebrew, in this kind of stuff, you know, then
or anyone listening,
come on. Then we're starting that. I don't know exactly when, but we're going to do it on alternating Fridays.
Okay.
Because one will be beginner, the next week will be advanced, beginner, advanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
So
would
it
be
wouldn't
cool.
be every week.
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm planning to attend the beginners class.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
It's great fun.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
That's
Good
so
stuff. Do you have anything you gotta ask?
No, I think I'm good. What you got?
Well.
Do you want to do our blessing and lesson?
Yeah, I
of
was
the
just
week?
about to say. So there's this thing that we do, and it's a blessing and a lesson for the week.
Okay.
So you just name either a blessing and a lesson that you've learned this week or in recent time.
Okay.
What
Do
you
you
got?
want me to go first?
Yes.
So the lesson for the week was I've been talking about on the podcast before how I haven't really been diving into my Bible because I've just been in a busy season. So I've been like getting out and running or walking, listening to the Lord, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. And as soon as I turned on, I just randomly went to YouTube because I'm like, I'm just not feeling my normal podcast. I'm just going to go to YouTube, you know? And it was like 10 minutes morning with God or something, wake up with God. And the first thing it said was, if you woke up today with everything that you had that you thanked God for yesterday, what would you have? And I was like, because I did thank him for some things, but I started thinking about, well, I didn't thank him for this, I didn't thank him for that, you know, and it just really like dawned on me, like, I need to be more intentional with my gratitude in the small things. Like, it's not always about the big things. So that was my lesson. And then my blessing for the week. Last week. I got to go camping, which I've been itching for. Like, my soul has needed that. I didn't get to stay all weekend, but it was just a blessing to be out in nature and be around some friends and stuff. So
Always.
yeah.
So my blessing and lesson of this week is kind of wrapped up all in one. So for work, anytime I have like cakes that go out of date or whatever, I try to save them instead of just throwing them away and donate them to food banks around town and stuff. And sometimes, you know, you get in routines of doing things and you don't really know if they matter or if anyone recognizes or like whatever, you know, and it gets monotonous and you don't really do it with the same passion that you started or whatever.
Right.
And so last week Jordan and I were so ridiculous because we had just come from the bank and we were on the way to the grocery store. And then in between we were going to drop off these little cakes. And there's two places that I drop off normally. And I just, for whatever reason, assumed Jordan was going to this other place, but he pulled it into this not that place, into the other one. And I was like, why are you coming here? Like, just go. And he was like, why does it matter? I was like, whatever. And so we were just like hustling and bustling, getting these boxes in so we can head on to the grocery store to get what we needed done, you know. And I'm bringing in the last box, and there's a lady. She came with like some shopping carts to put the boxes in to take them wherever they needed to go. And she stops me and she's like, hey, can you please leave me your name and number? And she was like, I know you've brought stuff here before. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I left it down, and she was like, you know, we're not a Christian-based nonprofit, but I believe God brings what we need. And I was like, amen, sister, you know, like, and then she, I don't know, she just started pouring into me, like, you don't understand how much this means to these families and what a difference what you're doing makes. And she's, I just wanted to tell you that, because I know sometimes, you know, exactly what I just said, like, it can get monotonous and you don't really think what you're doing makes a difference. And she's like, I just want to tell you that it does. And I was like, oh, well, like, thank you so much, that's so awesome, and blah 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 blah. We just get to talk, and she's like, come back here and let me show you what you're a part of. And so she took me back to like their organizing and counting and labeling massive production back there, and was just telling me all of the families and communities that they serve in Murfreesboro, like where we're at. We don't think about people who literally can't afford soap to wash their dishes or whatever. Like, you just don't think about it. And then she was just telling me how some people come in and their need is charcoal, because the only way they have to cook their food is over a campfire or on a charcoal grill. And like, she was just shaking me with all this stuff, you know. And she was like, and then at the end she was like, and I'm just so excited for them to get their little Debbie's tomorrow, and they don't even know it. Aww. And I just broke down, and in that moment I just said, like, can I pray for you?
Right.
I've never prayed for anybody like that ever before in my life. Like, somebody that I just met, like, didn't know. But it was just like, I knew that's what I needed to do, you know? And so we, like, hugged and prayed. And then I got done praying, and she just started praying for me.
Oh.
And it was just the most, like, humbling, like, sweetest, like, I don't know, thing ever. So I guess that's the blessing, is just that she blessed me and just showing me all that and letting me go through. This was Nourish Food Bank. I should have just said the name of it. But
and you weren't anticipating stopping at this one, right?
Right.
So were you gonna stop somewhere else?
Yes, exactly. And then the lesson, I think, is to just, you know, no matter where you're at, there's gonna be a need. Mm-hmm. And if you know, have even the smallest, like, out of date little Debbie's that you could just throw away, like, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Yeah. Amen. What you got?
Well,
sorry, we sprung that on you.
I know, I forgot to put that on the list.
Well, no, that's okay. One of the things, I think mine has rolled into one also. My blessing is my husband. Someone who the Lord gave me, you know, completely. And I'm very thankful, because he's someone who is, he stands with me, you know, and we are on one page, you know, and I'm very thankful for that. And the lesson is, we had a conversation even recently. It is so easy to take people for granted, you know, and I need to be more mindful of that.
Especially the ones closest around you, because those are the ones we usually tend to take more for granted than people that aren't so close.
Yeah.
So that's good. Well, thank you. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. I very much have enjoyed it.
Yes. I know, we always come in here and we're like, I don't know, I don't really have anything today, or blah, blah, blah. And then we're always like, man, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who are interested in your book, though, I want to make sure we get your book out there. If they're interested in your devotional, where can they find that?
Oh, at Amazon.
Amazon.
Yes,
okay.
It is on Amazon.
Okay, so we'll put the link down in the show notes. If you are interested in this devotional, I highly recommend it. Love it. Have not gotten through all the way, but what I have gotten through, it's so good. So thank you so much for being on.
Well, thank you.
All right, y'all. Well, we'll see you next time.
Love ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Be the Light podcast. You can catch us every Thursday on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, you can always email in at bethelightpod@gmail.com. We love ya.